Is the pot plant too much? How to choose a third-party removalist, how did we get our first job, and where did the name Foxy Home Staging come from? We've got a mixed bag of Q&A this week on episode 182 of Foxy TV. We're going to start the episode with Jake answering some questions on Tuesday this week, and then we'll go to Wednesday where Phoebe answers a number of questions, including a question around having conversations with clients who want to have a lot of input into the furniture, style, and colour selections.
We are heading to Northgate, north side of Brisbane. We're doing a switch over, so we're moving some furniture from one apartment. We did two side by side on a Foxy TV a while ago. We're moving one of those into one of the other ones in the same area. So just a quick switch over today.
Who's in the back here?
Is he asleep? I haven't heard from him.
What are your suggestions regarding what to ask for when choosing a third-party removalist?
Yeah, I would say, well, obviously the one thing that comes to mind is going to be the price, the cost. There are cheap options, there are expensive options. You need, from my point of view, you would need somebody who uses blankets to protect furniture, straps a lot of their stuff. There are removalists out there that they can put things on a truck, but they don't tend to pack bigger houses as much. So like I've seen them, we've used them in the past where you watch them and they don't really know how to stack your furniture in to get as much in as possible, and that means that they need to take extra or 2 trips to do it, for instance. So somebody I would steer away from the cheapest options, because you want somebody who's got some experience, is going to treat your furniture properly and look after it, obviously, and professional, I guess. You just want to get that feeling that they know what they're doing. It's probably the main things that come to mind.
The next question, as you move this heavy mattress featuring Sean, is how many removalists do you have on staff, and what is the ratio to stylists? No staying around, you guys have got to move while you talk.
So we've got roughly the same amount of removalists as stylists most of the time. Right now we've probably got an extra couple, so we've got 3 trucks and 9 removalists. Normally we'd had about 2.5 per truck. But as we've gotten bigger, we want a little bit more buffer and time in the warehouse. So yeah, about 9 guys for 3 trucks.
Jake, we have another question for you.
Yeah.
Do you have external HR support to manage onboarding and other HR tasks?
No, we don't. To be honest, it's one of those ones I don't know enough about external HR and what they actually do, outside of helping recruit maybe. So it's not something I've really looked into in the past. Not something that I'm against, and as we've grown bigger, maybe I can see a need for small parts or small functions, I guess, within that kind of HR sphere to be done, or at least get some help with. But yeah, no, not at the moment.
All right, Jake, we're back at the warehouse now. We have the last question for you. Looking for advice for a young person looking to start in the business, best way to go about it. She has a diploma in interior design and she's from Papua New Guinea. It is a developing country. The closest thing you get here to staging is a basic setup by a real estate company, or no setup at all. Should love some advice.
That's a tricky one. I was going to say my first advice before I realised that she's in an area that doesn't really have home staging. So probably, I'll give 2 bits, so not specific to her, but somebody who's looking to or considering getting into the industry. I would say first, work for another staging company would be my first bit of advice, because a lot of people enter the industry who are doing it because they like the idea of the staging and want to do that as a business. And you just start to realise once you get into it and you see other people that so much of what we do as a business isn't actually the staging, it's all the other stuff, logistics and relationship building and training and staff and all that other stuff. So for somebody who has the ability to go and work for another staging company, I'd say that's where you start, because then you get to see it from the inside and you get to learn some skills and that sort of thing. If you're in a situation like that where there are no other staging companies, I think the business side is probably important to at least get a little bit of an idea about. So if there's some courses and things you can do around bookkeeping and knowing your numbers and that sort of thing, it's probably not a bad starting point to get some of those skills. Having said that, things like bookkeeping. So knowing your numbers is important. Bookkeeping specifically is something that you can bring somebody in to help with. You don't need to do a full accounting course to be able to run a business. You just need to know some of the basics. Otherwise, it's one of those things. We probably, when we started as a business in Brisbane, it was still a lot of education in the sense that you had to, a lot of people didn't know what staging was or, the benefits of it, and you had that pushback. So there was education in the sense that we had to kind of show people why it was important. Now we had that to some degree. Somewhere that doesn't have anything like Papua New Guinea, if there's no stages, that's going to be a big task. That's not to say don't give it a go. It just means you have to accept that when you start, it's going to be a harder slog probably getting going and getting the agents on board and the clients to understand what it is that you offer and where your value is. So know your value, have your examples and your case studies. See if you might need to do some work for people just to get your foot in the door and have those examples that you can then use to take and to other agents and go from there.
I'm in Brookwater.
Yep.
First to Springfield to do a pack up before the boys get there, and then I'm going to do an install, just a 3-bedroom one.
Yep.
We've got 5 installs happening today, but we've only got a couple, 4 stylists on because Kirsten's off sick.
First of all, I'll show you this photo from Holly. Can you tell me if it's way too much? So she styled a dining table, and I'll put the image up for those watching. Is the plant way too much? She's asked.
It's very big, but when you live in the home, you can do what you like. It really depends on the size of the space. So if you've got huge big ceilings, that would look phenomenal. If you've got a huge big space, that's also awesome. I don't know if that's a 6 or an 8-seater dining table. If it's an 8-seater, I would think that would also be great. It's a lot bigger than what we'd style with for sale because that would just command all of the attention on the one spot. But it's very resort style. I like it.
And can vases themselves be taller than the dining chairs?
Well, it really depends on what's above it, because if you've got a pendant light, or what's like in this one, you've got a ceiling fan, you've got to be really careful because otherwise you start having this whole big centerpiece that takes all of the attention. It goes all the way to the ceiling, then it starts having this effect where it makes it feel smaller. We tend to not have ginormous vases, so I'm talking about something that's about 60 centimetres or bigger. On our dining tables, they're about 50 centimetres. I wouldn't go for anything less than 50 centimetres on a dining table though.
Why the name Foxy Home Staging?
Well, I liked it. This is so silly. I like that it was a very underused styling term. So like when you're describing someone who's stylish, say Foxy. But I like the ability to be able to use it for, this is so dumb, Cody, to use it for newsletters and address everybody's vixens. We have never, ever done that. So at the time, I thought it was a great idea. Anyway, it sticks. Doesn't get lost with all the other companies. It stands out. Get the ladies from Foxy out.
Phoebe, how did your install go?
Wonderfully. Hayley's over there finishing up. We got some rain. And somebody had been in there before us and put dirty footprints all through it. So it looks like we did it, so now we have to clean it. So anyway, it came up great.
How did you get your first client or real estate agents that wanted to work with you?
When we started out, I would make at least, as a minimum, 5 phone calls a day. They were cold calls, but they weren't a sales call. They were ringing to introduce me, say, hey, we're doing things differently. Would love to meet you. I also offered an interview script to do a feature on our blog. And that's honestly how I got in to see the first 5 agents I met with. So I met with them for a coffee for about an hour. My very first agent, I had Charlie at the meeting with me. Charlie was 3 months old. She also had a 3-month-old baby. We met at her house, had a really great chat, did do a feature blog on her. Fun fact, the first 5 agents I actually met with, I still work with 4 of them and the 5th one's retired.
What do you say to people who want to see a mood board or pics of the furniture you're going to use? We all know this isn't how it works and it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Even when I tell them to look at my Instagram, they tend to say something like, oh, I don't like that throw or those cushions. How do you handle this without sounding arrogant or rude?
It does drive you crazy. I do understand that, but from the perspective of a vendor, when it's how many of them are going to sell a house more than once or twice in their lifetime? So you have to come up from that perspective. The more people watch these shows on like Selling Houses Australia and The Block, the more people are becoming educated and feel that they have a voice to be heard. So we are having increasingly more and more people ask us about this. So for us in particular, we're doing 6 or 7 installs per day. And this is my script, this is what I say to them. We do about 6 or 7 installs per day. So between today when we're having this conversation, And the day when we install, we have a very high throughput of furniture, turnover of furniture through our warehouse. So what is here today and things that I might show you that I might like to put in your home won't be available when it comes to the installation day. And I don't want to set you up to be disappointed. I can definitely send them through links of properties that will have a similar feel, but none of the particular pieces I can definitely promise, because it just honestly depends on what's in the warehouse. When it comes down to color palette, for me, it's about what is available to us to ensure that it has the most cohesive, high-end, beautiful, perfect end finish. I then will pop out a couple colors. If I think it's going to go with blues or things like that, I'll mention it. But generally what I do is I tell them what I'm not going to use. So I can walk into a property and I can tell them, oh, look, we're not going to go for a grey or monochrome color palette here. We're not going to go for a contemporary finish. We're not going to go for a Hamptons or a coastal finish. If you can, it's about being a bit vague without being too committed to the answer, but giving somebody, because they're not stupid, you can't treat them that way. You've got to give them as much information as they can for them to be able to understand. So I find telling them what we're not going to do it gives them far better reassurance than going, oh, look, maybe I could do it, but maybe it won't be available, and maybe I've got to use, maybe I won't have enough stock. Like, those ones put different questions in someone's mind. So go down the path of what you won't do. Let them know that you have high throughput, high turnover of furniture, that you can ensure that it's going to be absolutely beautiful, but we won't generally lock that into a couple of days before our installation.
That is it for this week's episode of Foxy TV. If you have questions you would like answered in a future episode, leave them in the comments section wherever you're watching the video. If you'd rather remain anonymous, you can send us a message and we can leave your name out. Other than that, yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here next week. So Sil, whoopsie daisy Sil, has dropped keys. Let's focus on here. Well, it's really not focusing. Anyway, you can imagine those keys.
I got this, don't worry.
Sean,
The experts on the job.
experts on the job.
This is a pretty bendy wire.
Yeah, it's pretty bendy.
Oh no.
We'll check back. See you in half an hour. So
Good thing we have Jake on the job. This is probably the best idea I've ever heard him say.
he doesn't have many.
Not a lot, but we took the art hooks and we put it in on the wire because the wire wasn't strong enough to hook the keys. So
All right.
here we go. Yes.
Look at that.
Yes.
Canadians can fish.